Welcome to another episode of Six Figure Secrets for Fractional Experts. My name is Bradley Jacobs. I'm your host and the founder and CEO of Mylance. Today, I'm joined by Rob Matzkin. Rob has over 20 years of experience helping high growth SaaS and AI startups raise capital and scale with clarity. Last 5 years, he's been running his own fractional business and still in the VC world as well. Rob, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, expand on my intro. Tell us more about who you are, what you do, how you got here.
So I'll just kick it off from a professional perspective. Really actually grew up in my family business in high school. Realized that was not a path I wanted to go down after working there for a year. And then jumped into the world of entrepreneurship kind of randomly. Ended up starting a company called Booze Carriage, which was me inventing the alcohol delivery space in the US. 3.5 years, quickly took that to an acquisition. And then from there, I've started 16 different companies, have had two separate exits, got into investing with my family office and out of my VC fund. And also these days do a tremendous amount of consulting and coaching, particularly around startups raising money, because I've seen both ends, and it's really a purpose-driven business for me trying to make a difference for others. I also have a purpose-driven business summit that I do where I do bring purpose-driven entrepreneurs together. So I've done a few different things across the board.
Amazing. And you mentioned purpose-driven 2 or 3 times. So what is your purpose in this world?
That's a funny question because what is my purpose? I don't know if I have it clearly defined yet. I'll say this, right? What really fulfills me is making a huge impact in other people's lives and seeing other people thrive, right? It really lights me up. Of course, I love seeing my own success as well, but really what fulfills me is that. And I think it's a good question that I actually need to answer and put up on the whiteboard, that what is my purpose? I'm still seeking it in many ways, I think.
I love just the honesty there, right? You could have just made something up real quick, but it's kind of an evolving thing, right? Like your purpose does change and evolve as you do and learn different things. And then what I like is I think you've had a lot of success in your life. And so now the natural thing is to come back to, okay, what do I really want to do? What impact do I want to make on this planet?
There's plenty of things that really interest me, right? As far as where I can make an impact, right? Education is huge for me. I grew up dyslexic. I still am dyslexic, right? And I didn't read till I was 10 years old, right? So learning disabilities and things of that nature, huge impact that I want to make. Would I say it's my purpose to change that? I don't know. Is that something I really care about and I'm passionate about? Absolutely, right? And even today, how I cope with that and deal with that in business and navigate business with that, I don't want to say it's a disability. I think it's actually my greatest advantage of how I think differently. But there's a lot of things that I'm passionate about.
So I love hearing people's starter stories, and often the starter story is kind of this random thing that happened, but it's really not, because there's very few people that would take the random thing and turn it into a business, right? And you did that with this golf tournament crowd, and you turned it into a 20K weekend parking business. Tell us the story. What happened?
Yeah, it was really simple. And it was like, so I grew up next to a golf course called Wingfoot, which is where the US Open golf tournament comes every 8 years or something. So when I was 19 or 20, they came to town, and there was no parking for, 15 miles or something. People were busing in from an hour away. So I was like, we're a mile away. Let's chauffeur people in. We charged $100 a car, fit 75 cars in a day. But the wildest thing about it was like every spectrum of business, because, okay, we advertised, we put a sign up, great. But then the next day, the cops were parking across the street in this huge lot. So I had state troopers that I was talking to all day, and the street was shut down, but we're getting people in. So I was navigating law enforcement. Then I was navigating local municipalities, because there's an ordinance in my parents' town where you couldn't park on the grass, but we had a big lot. So we were putting them people on the pavement. So it was this whole thing to navigate, and the city was trying to shut us down, and we were shuttling cars over to auxiliary to a different town over to Buddy's place. So it was all this thing. Then I was working with friends as well, and my friends wanted a piece of the business, and they're just hourly. So it was like all the things of business and like a 4-day thing that I was navigating. But it was a fun little cash cow in
I love it. Like you as a 19-year-old are now navigating law enforcement and the city municipalities and like subcontracting your friends. And then, I don't know, did you have like an entity? Did you pay taxes on this? Like what?
I mean, we're being recorded. I'm not answering that question.
Fair enough. A horrible question.
But no,
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah. But
I'm sure you learned a ton in an incredibly short period of time. And I guess what lesson do you take? I'm sure there's a million, but
there is a million. But I think one of the lessons that I think was unfortunate that I've rethought about is when working with, at the time I was like never working with friends again because, they thought they like owned the company, which they did. But really just being clear, I think that the new takeaway of looking at it fresh is you got to be really clear with people when you start out, right? And really open and transparent and what the actual contract is, right? And I didn't do that. I flew by the seat of my pants and asked them to help me out, right? And I thought I was doing them a favor. They thought they were getting a piece. So I think that's the biggest lesson in how to navigate interpersonal relationships, especially when it comes to money, and really being delicate with that. And I think everybody still has that challenge. I still have that challenge to this day, but I'm just really straight and very upfront with what that is and managing expectations.
I love that. And I would also just say, even hearing the story, just go do the thing.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like how many people would want to be planning like, okay, what are we going to deal with this? And then this, and then this, and then this. It's like, just freaking do it.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm a huge fan. I read the books later in life, but Screw It, Just Do It by Richard Branson, right? But if I like tried getting permission from the city, there's no way that would have happened. I would have been shut down even if I was 6 months out. Like if you're not harming people, like just go for it. Right. If you're not actually causing harm, and then deal with it later. Right. And if the city came after me, it would have been fine. My dad yelled at me because we broke a bunch of sprinklers, but it was fine.
You're kind of reminding me, I worked at Uber back in the day, and the drivers were getting ticketed and cars impounded, taxi lobbyists coming after us, threatening, arresting, GMs of cities sometimes. I mean, it was really ruthless, frankly, in many ways. And Travis, CEO at the time, founder of the company, was like, we're going to just do this. And because this is the best answer for transportation, right? Taxis are not the best answer. So we're just going to do it and we'll deal with it. And city by city by city, state by state, country by country by country, they did it. Right. Yeah. Like I was negotiating with the Raleigh-Durham airport for like a year and a half, and I was like 24 years old. I was like, okay, we're just going to figure this. We're going to figure it out.
That's awesome. That had to be quite an experience. That had to be.
It was crazy.
Wild. Yeah.
My favorite, just quick anecdote is the Raleigh-Durham airport asked for us to send over all of our files, like on the drivers. Like they wanted all like the data and the trip data and all this stuff. Okay. And I was like, what do you mean by the files? And she goes, where you have like the massive filing cabinets and you like send over all the shit. And I laughed. I did. I was like, we don't have those, right? Like it's in a queryable database. And she's like, what are you talking about? It was like,
you're like, yeah, I'll export you an Excel or a CSV that you could take a look at. What specific data fields do you want?
Yeah. And she's like, what's a CSV? It was just like, it was great. Anyway.
Love that.
One of the things that you've talked about is, frankly, what no one talks about, right? Being a founder when things are hard, right? And really getting into what it's like, what the experience is like, the emotional, the physical, the financial toll of building something from scratch. And a lot of our audience are fractional executives. So they're selling a service, but they're entrepreneurial, right? At the end of the day, you don't go out on your own if you're not entrepreneurial to some degree or to a large degree. So what would you share from that point of view of what is it really like to be out there? I mean, obviously I know, but I want to hear from your point of view.
No, I think it's great, right? Because, even today I go through this, right? But it's like, it's a friggin' roller coaster. And anybody who says it's not is lying, right? I remember I was 28. I picked up the book, The Hard Things About Hard Things, by Ben Horowitz. And this book, it blew my mind at the time because especially doing a startup, you're raising money from friends, from family, from everybody you know, and you have to look good because your customers have to think you're succeeding. You can't say things are bad and you have nobody to speak to. And you're literally on this own little plateau. Like even your girlfriend has to think, or whoever your spouse is at the time has to think everything's going perfectly. And I was like, and then I read the book. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not alone. Everybody goes through this. And what he went through is like, peanuts to what I'm going through. And it just trickles down to even today, right? Like, even like a client's going out of business and one client's like off gallivanting around the world. And all of a sudden I'm 2 clients down and I'm going, well, there's a good chunk of revenue. And, I went from being like sitting pretty to, okay, this month I need to let's hustle. Let's get a few more clients. Let's make up for this. Right. And I don't think that ever necessarily stops unless you get to an overwhelming point of lead generation and really getting over like a certain inflection point. But it's the nature of business. You're gonna be here. You're gonna want to grow. You're gonna increase your infrastructure. You're gonna want to grow. And at some point, it's the nature of like capitalism growth that you're always going to be stretching yourself and not resting in your laurels. So in many ways, it's going to be kind of that tough game unless you want to, I don't want to say play small, but like you need to get to this like flywheel of breakout success, right? But until you get to that, there's always this stress, I guess, of that. And it's like, I say this to people, and I think it's a little less so for us freelancers, but especially running a startup. I see my clients, they go from like one client's like, I'm shutting down, I'm packing it and I'm done, to the next 2 weeks being like, oh my God, this was the most incredible 2 weeks ever. And I would go through that. I'm like, I'm worth $100 million. I'm worth nothing. I need to sleep on a friend's couch. I'm worth $200 million. I'm going to be homeless. Like, where am I going to eat tonight? All this stuff. So I was like, all right, how do I just do this like Prozac? I didn't actually go on medication, but I'm like, how do I just pretend I'm on Prozac and the highs are here, the lows are here. And it's like, and navigating that, because no matter how bad you think it is, given a little bit of time, it will come out the other end. And it's really a signal that, okay, is this a signal that things aren't working? Or is this emotionally things aren't looking good? Or like, do I just need to give it a little bit more time? And sometimes it's fuzzy, right? But the more clarity you get is like, is this a signal that things aren't working and I need more leads, or I need this, or I need that? What isn't working? Do I need to go up market? Like, is this effective or not? And real tests and real signal, not emotion, but real data, right? You work for Uber. You guys were very data driven, right? Every city was a new market. Everything had to be data driven, and separating from the emotion. But because the emotion is going to be like, you're going to wake up and freak out. But what does the data say? And what could you do to calm yourself emotionally? And what structures could you put in place, whether that's diet, exercise, mental regime, whatever that is, to really deal with that, right? And I could go down a rabbit hole, the whole personal growth and development thing and what put in place. But I think that's a long-winded answer to your question.
I mean, it's kind of a crazy concept that I'm fully convinced, unless you go through it yourself, you truly have no idea what it's like, right? Only the actual founders who went out there and started their own thing from scratch truly get it.
Yeah.
And so you talked a little, you were touching on the setting yourself up for success, right? The stress management, the gym, exercise, sleep, that kind of stuff. I mean, what are the top maybe 2 or 3 things from that standpoint that you've put in place for your life that have made the biggest impact in keeping yourself sane through the roller coaster of ups and downs?
And, transparently, so when I'm stressed, I do a few things, right? When I'm not stressed, I'm a little less regimented. So the first thing is, how do I hack my productivity, right? My biggest productivity hack is I literally plan every 10 to 15 minutes like it's the biggest meeting. So I write down from 7 a.m. to whenever I'm leaving my desk, or even my whole day to like midnight, what am I doing? When am I going to the bathroom? When am I eating? And regimented with all of it. So then I know exactly what I could get done that day, and I could take my do list and I could plop it in, and I know exactly what's going to happen that day and what's not. Right. And then I could reprioritize according to that. So that's the more structure you have, the more freedom you have. Right. So really putting that into place. The second thing is get your mental state under control. Everybody says I can't meditate. All meditation is one breath, even if it's 10 minutes of mind wandering. If it's one breath of all you thought about was that breath, that's the success. But how do we calm the mind? I'm a huge kite surfer these days. I used to be a huge surfer. I used to be an acrobat. I've done some sort of hobby always to get myself out of my damn head and into my body and just let the world disappear at least a few times a week. Sometimes it works. Like that's why the 5 a.m. club is a thing. I personally hate it. But even if you have to get up at 5 a.m. to give yourself a little bit of time to make sure you're getting that quiet time. And then I think the third thing I could say is there's a book by Cal Newport called Deep Work. Basically, all he's saying is if you could chunk the biggest project you have and block off an hour to hour and a half of uninterrupted time to get that done, it'll be the biggest favor you could do to yourself. So those are the three biggest tips I could give you.
The deep work thing, and the one thing I'll add to it that I've done personally is if I plan the night before and say, what am I going to do in that hour? 2 things, 3 things, 1 thing, doesn't matter. If I don't do that, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I have no fucking idea what to do. It's a crazy phenomenon within myself.
No, 100%, right? I wake up with it, especially when I wake up with anxiety going, oh, shit. And like, I sit my ass down, like I literally go pee, brush my teeth, get a glass of water. I sit my ass down at this table and I literally write out exactly what I'm going to do. And I'm like, oh, okay. I give myself structure, right? I hate structure. I hate it. I just want to be free. But whenever I'm free, I don't do shit. The more structure you have, the more freedom you have. It's the best quote I've heard in the last like 5 years.
Love it. Yeah. And what's interesting, and it's different for every person, but if I did what you did and woke up and tried to write down what I'm going to do, it doesn't work for me. Like I have to do it the night before. Otherwise I'm a mess. And I can't tell you why. The night before I'm so clear. Like it's easy.
I have a great morning routine. I've been writing down that I'm going to put in a great evening routine for like forever. And for the life of me, it's like most of the times it's like I sit my ass down, even if I get home late, I put on the TV and I'll fall asleep and then I'll get up like 10 minutes later and then brush my teeth and like pass out. But me, like I'm not a night person, I'm a morning person. So trying to like clarify things at night, it's what I should do. It's great advice. I think it's way better than mine. But I need to do that.
One of the things that you talked about is working on the right things, right? Actually prioritizing what moves the needle. And it's a perfect segue from the deep work conversation. But especially for fractionals, for independents listening to this.
Yeah.
What is the one thing, 2 things that are most important for them to actually move the needle in their businesses?
Okay. The first thing I want to say is cash is king, right? You got to look at what's actually moving the needle, right? And you got to look at their data and everything's a test. Right? Everything's an experiment. That's the biggest thing I could say from startup world is the companies that live or die, they're the ones that, the ones who fail are the ones, oh, I think this, I'm just going to go do it. And I'm not going to have any feedback loop. And the ones that succeed overwhelmingly are the ones like, let's run a test. What does the data show us? It could even be an informal test, but how do we learn from what's not working? Right? And I think that's one of the biggest things that I take into this from startup world is like, how do I just listen to the data? How do I listen to feedback? How do I, people will tell us all sorts of opinions, but how do I take that and it's like, oh, that's gold. Let me incorporate that. Let me get more wins here. But like, even going a step deeper is like, okay, we all want top line leads and we all want to have the perfect customers at the perfect time. But like when we actually speak to people, what's working? What's not working? Are we getting the second meetings? Are we closing? Is our follow-up documentation or proposals, are they being effective? Like, are people like where is it breaking? Like what's not working? Let's go fix that.
Yeah. Well, and notice, right? you're talking all about sales and new business, right? You said cash is king. It's about finding new business. Most consultants don't like doing that.
It's the lifeblood of the business. It's like, okay, great. For me, I'm like, it's everything. I mean, we can operationalize everything, and it is about delivering the product. But delivering the product, if delivering the product was hard, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't be doing what we're doing right now, right? It's probably our natural spot. So I say that I have this quote that I tell to technical founders all the time. And I go, let me ask you something. Are you dreaming about your product every night? They go, yeah. I'm like, do you have like the next 2 to 5 years built out in your head of what you're going to do? You're like, yeah. I'm like, great. So you don't have to think about that shit ever again. And all your time and your resources are on sales and biz dev.
The end of the day too, right, is around, it's with AI, it's never been easier, and it's only going to get easier to build whatever product you want.
Yeah.
Right. And we know from a services perspective, how many people have become independent fractional in the last 4 years with COVID. I mean, it exploded. We're talking about millions of people literally are out there now. Okay. So let's just assume to some degree, we're all a commodity. We all deliver the same either service or product, which is not true, but let's just say for sake of discussion, what then separates the winners? I don't want to say from the losers because it's not a win-lose game, but from the people that really win. Like, what separates them?
So I think it's a few things, right? One, the canned answer is positioning, is branding, right? But that's one thing. But getting down, it's like, how are you going to build rapport and trust, right? Tony Robbins has a great quote. I don't usually quote him, but people only buy from people that they like, know, and trust, right? So the sooner you can get somebody to know you, like you, and trust you, they're going to buy. And the second they know that you could deliver, they'll buy. But it really comes down to giving an overwhelming amount of value. Because if you over deliver, and there's something in startup world called net promoter score, bottom line is you reach a certain number in a survey and people are raving to their friends about you. You don't want to be lower than that because then they're just like, meh, they never talk about you. And you certainly don't want to be lower than that because then they're talking shit about you.
Right. There, I'm seeing as you talk this cycle, right, of get in front of people, of course, deliver value. Value builds trust and the likeness that you talked about. And then when they trust and like you, they buy from you.
Yeah.
And then when they love what you bought, as you said, they rave about you.
Yep.
And then, we all know referrals are the best way to build a trusted relationship because it's just the trust is passed on.
Exactly. Right. So I focus a lot of my time on referrals. I focus a lot of time on connections. The best customers I've ever gotten were from referrals. My longest lasting customers were from referrals. So that's where I spend a lot of my time, for better or for worse. I'd love to crack the Facebook marketing game. That was a lot of tears. And I think I'm up 5 or 10K from all that, but not if you count my time.
You're right. How much effort? Yeah.
Yeah. Not if you count my time. And then, I was talking to somebody about doing like organic and stuff like that. And I'd love to crack the code with it. I have not cracked the code on that, to be perfectly honest. But what I am naturally great at is being in front of people and having a VC fund and traveling the world. I meet a tremendous amount of amazing individuals who run funds and family offices and all sorts of things. So them doing referrals to their startups and stuff like that has been tremendous as well.
Yeah. It was kind of interesting at the beginning. Before we got online, I asked you what you do for marketing and you're like, oh, nothing really. It's just word of mouth and referrals. And then I was like, well, how do you get the word of mouth and referrals? And then you're like, oh, I do all this networking at conferences and meeting people and introductions. It's like, okay, that's actually a huge amount of marketing right there that you do. It's just not traditional, content or whatever.
Yeah, you got to remember, there's 138 different ways of marketing. 138, right? You can look it up. Maybe ChatGPT will tell you 136 or 180. I don't know. But there's a lot, right? And so, but yeah, networking, if somebody was like, oh, you should do BNI. Oh my God, please, no, never again. But, or like, you should join the chamber. I'm like, okay, but I think there's certain fields that stuff works for, but finding a niche and finding a room that is going to be target rich or referral rich. And I actually don't want to be in front of a target audience, because if I'm in a room with startup founders, I'm actually like, I'm hurting after. I really am. I'm sorry if you're a startup founder out there. I love you to death, but I'm hurting if it's a room with you. But if I'm in other people that could refer me to those that are trusted partners, that room is something special for me. Yeah. And I try and find those rooms, and now I'm like, where do I put my energy and intention so I could be full on one of those rooms?
Right. So you have found this in-person conference networking, introductions, word of mouth game is very effective for you.
It's the most effective thing I have going on yet. Now, by the way, the one thing I need to add, and people are going to say I'm full of shit, is I'm an introvert. I grew up super shy. And not that this is like, you're getting the authentic me, but like and when I mean introvert, it means being out there is a net energy loss for me. So I'm even more particular when I network of being intentional with that. Yeah. So anybody could be put out there. If you met me when I was 12, like I wouldn't want to talk to anybody.
I'm also an introvert myself, and which means, as you said, I recharge by being alone, right? Yeah. That's to me the definition. What I used to think it means is that like, I don't like talking to strangers, which is bullshit, right? Yeah. That's just a fear-driven response of I'm afraid of the awkward conversation or not knowing how to approach it, or they'll reject me or whatever. That has nothing to do with introvert extrovert.
No.
I learned that more recently, but it's a good one. So that's why people say that's why you said people are going to say you're full of shit, because they think that they're an introvert because they don't like talking to strangers, which really means they're just scared about talking to strangers.
I've seen the most awkward. I've met a few individuals that like are the most spectrumy, awkward humans, and they're at all these conferences, and they're some of the most successful people. So if they could be out there like and be fine, anybody really can.
I mean, truly, it's just about being yourself. Go there, have some fun with it.
Yeah,
make some conversation. I mean.
And you know, it's funny. I had to deal with this for a while. Like I've had a coach for a long time, personal growth coach / business coach. And for the longest time, and I still don't understand it, but like people are like, we really like you, Rob. We really get along with you and this and that. I'm like, I don't know why. I'm like, I just don't. I'm like, I don't know, like my je ne sais quoi. I'm like, I'm just me. Like you love me, you hate me. Like, cool. But the feedback I get when I ask that is like, well, I'm authentic and I'm vulnerable. And as long as I'm authentic and vulnerable, people gravitate me, because nobody wants to be around somebody who's bullshit or full of shit, right? And especially, I live in Miami Beach these days. The biggest challenge I have down here, I love it. Don't get me wrong, not complaining, just a little bit. But being around real people, and you tend to get it. Like when you're in New York, it's like, oh, you work for Goldman. Cool. I know what you do. You're a known entity. I get you're doing really well. I know how you made money. Down here, it's like, oh, it could be anything. So it's like being real around real people. It's like, it's everything. Yeah. And that's across the globe. So anyway, sorry for my tangent.
I'm curious about the vulnerability piece. Like what does that mean to you to show up vulnerably, let's just say at a conference or meeting someone new?
I mean, the definition of vulnerability to me is like just being open. Is like I don't have to put on, like some things are really difficult, right? Some things really aren't working, right? And just being real with people that is like, I'm definitely human. I definitely have my own demons. I definitely have my own challenges. I think I have to remind myself of how good I have it, but I definitely have goals that I haven't achieved. And as long as I'm real with people of like the good, the bad, the ugly, and sometimes show the ugly, you know, one of the reasons sharing that I'm dyslexic and I didn't read till I was 10 years old, that's to me, for the longest time, that was super embarrassing, right? I didn't think I was smart. I thought I was stupid, right? To me, like, I was like, oh my God, like, how could I let anybody see, and people destroyed me when the teachers asked me to read out loud. Even today, I'm like, and like I'm emceeing a conference in 3 weeks, and it's the first time I'm emceeing. Obviously, I'm decently spoken. I curse a little bit, but like the thought of emceeing, I almost said no, because I was like, I have to read in front of like 500 people, and get everybody's names right. And I'm like, to me, that is like, this is going to be so confronting. Like, let me tell you, it's going to be another little breakthrough. But I'm gonna sit there and I usually wing stuff. Like, I'm like, ask me anything, I'll go for it. But now I'm gonna actually have to sit there and study it, know my script, so it just rolls off. So I'm polished. Otherwise, I'll feel like an idiot, and then it'll snowball, and I'm like, go to just spiraling in anxiety. So it's but that's what scares me. Not public speaking, public reading.
I love it. I mean, yeah. I want to acknowledge.
Well, I don't love it.
I love to share. That's really what I'm saying. And the willingness to get uncomfortable by getting up there and emceeing the event anyway, right? That's a growth opportunity. And as you said, it's kind of an edge, and it's a breakthrough. That some of the things, I mean, some people even on this podcast come to me and they're like, I'm terrified to post on LinkedIn. Just like terrified, right? For all the list of reasons. And it's like, cool. What do you want to do about that? You can either let the fear prevent you from doing it, prevent you from marketing yourself and getting yourself out there, or you can acknowledge the fear and do it anyway.
Yep.
You have two options, right? Yeah.
No, exactly. By the way, I hate posting. I still like my Instagram's private again. Like, there's just so much about it that I can't stand. Like, I used to do all these reels. You probably find a bunch of those reels, but I did hundreds of reels, and some of them were cringeworthy. Nobody else thought they're cringeworthy. I wanted to cringe. Right. And, and then I was like, oh my God, how many likes did it get? Oh, I didn't get that many likes. I feel less.
Right.
But it's Prozac. Again, Prozac.
Yeah. I always tell people, if you record a shitty reel or write a shitty post, nobody sees it.
This is also true.
Right? Also true. Yeah. Like, I have an audience of like 23,000 on LinkedIn, and I've literally written a post that got 0 likes and it had like 50 impressions, which is actually kind of challenging to do if you really think about it. And I was like, cool, that post was so bad. Not a single person engaged with it, which means no one freaking saw it.
Yep. Except the one person, probably the one person you didn't want to see it did see it, though, because that's
like, but yeah. I will tell you, unless I piss someone off, which I have before, but no one has ever come to me and said, that post you wrote, yeah, that was really shitty. Yeah. They disagreed with me. I pissed them off by like a claim I made, sure. And that's fine. But no one has ever been like, that was a piece of shit content.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yep.
So, again, they can disagree with me, and that's fine. But all right, last question, and then we got to jump. But productizing a service, such a cliche, it's such a phrase to create scalable revenue. But to you, Rob, what does productizing a service really mean?
I just went through it, right? Because I was like, I hired somebody. He's like, we're going to do 100K and 300K a month, and it's going to be great. And we're going to get 30 clients a month, and you're going to have 300 a year. I'm like, he's like, you can't do that by alone. You got to have like cohorts. I'm like, all right, cool. So let's productize this, right? And how do I actually sit down and codify what I do, and how do we actually make this, and I listed out like 80 different things, and I'm like, I can't have an 80-week program. And I kept whittling it down. I was like, all right, let's do a 24-week program. But I really broke down what are the core elements of what I did, what difference do I want to make, how do I get that across, and how do I bring people through a process. Now, from those 80 things, I got 4 pillars. And from those 4 pillars, I really was able to redefine how I even spoke about what I did, right? So that exercise right there redefined my business. But then I also have the ability to really push people through in a cohort, like in a huge, impactful way, to really make a difference for them. And creating those systems. By the way, it's also easier than ever right now, because having a conversation with ChatGPT or Claude or Gronk or whoever you want to talk to, and how to really organize that is really. It's just such a huge tool in the toolbox.
Yeah. One thing you'd leave our audience with, anything.
2 things. How about, I'll re-say my quote, the more structure you have, the more freedom you have. And the darkest part of the night is right before dawn.
How would you translate that? Yeah, go ahead.
The darkest part of the night is right before dawn, right? So literally it's going to be as dark as it could be, and as you could be at your bottom, and then you're right there and you find that breakthrough. Or the other quote to that is, the biggest failures in life never know how close they were to success, right? There's a little gif of like the guy like cracking away at like a diamond seam, and he's like right there and he's walking away, right? So if you're looking for, if like you're pounding away and you're like right there, and you don't know if you're right there, but you're just, things aren't working, I'd say this. One is, look at what really isn't working, what is, and then just keep at it and push another month longer, or two, because it could just be right around that corner.
Yeah. Where can people find you if they're looking to get in touch?
It's my name, robmatzkin.com, robmatzkin at Gmail, robmatzkin at Insta or LinkedIn. But just reach out. Always happy to support, always happy to lend some advice or a helping hand. And if I can make a difference for you, let me know.
Amazing. Well, Rob, thank you so much for the time and the insights. Great to have you on.
Hey, thanks for having me. This was great. Really appreciate all the questions.